Hey guys, and welcome to the game Gengo JLPT N3 Grammar Series. In this video, we're going to be going through the next 4 pieces of grammar: BEKIDA, BEKI DEWANAI, BAKARI DE, and BAKARI DENAKU. In this video, you will learn exactly how to use each of these pieces of grammar thanks to a ton of different examples from Japanese video games, as well as the most simple explanations of how these pieces of grammar are used. So without further ado, let's get started. BEKIDA. Here we have BEKIDA. And quite simply, this means that you should or ought to do something. A Japanese explanation of this would be something like shita hou ga ii or suru no ga touzen da. So you should or ought to do a certain action. This implies that the act of doing this action is an obvious action to take normally. You can use beki following a verb to express that you ought to do that verb. Verbs need to be in the dictionary form, and the verb suru, to do, can both be used as surubeki or just simply subeki da, so dropping the ru. Both forms are very commonly seen. So this piece of language is often used when giving someone warning or advice about taking a certain course of action, that you ought to do it. So, like seen here with Frieza screaming at Goku that you should be killed by me. Ore ni korosareru beki nanda. Or like seen here in Death Stranding, you should have this. Or you ought to hold on to this. So here, motsu beki da means that you should hold on to it. Or like seen here in Kingdom Hearts 1, that is how the heart should be. Kokoro no aru beki sugata. Aru here is to be. And as we can see here used in the very next sentence again, yami ni kaeru beki nanoda. So kaeru here is to return to the darkness, and then beki says that you should or that you ought to. So every heart ought to return to the darkness. This next example from Megaton Musashi is very much like this piece of advice or saying that something should be a certain way, where the character says susumu beki desu. So susumu is to advance forward. And actually we can see here beki desu. This is just the polite form of beki da, as desu is the polite form of da. So it can be both beki da or beki desu. Like seen here in Detroit Become Human, I should have told you that. Ite oku beki deshita. So the action here of him licking the blood to analyze it because he's an android, he should have said that earlier because then he wouldn't have been so confused about what he was doing. So here he uses beki to express that feeling that the action was kind of an obvious action that he should have done. And then finally seen here again in Death Stranding, we can see subeki. So just like we saw in the grammar rules, it doesn't have to be surubeki, it could just be subeki. So here it's subeki ninmu, the mission that you ought to do, the mission that you should do. BEKI DEWANAI. BEKI DEWANAI is quite simply the negative form of the previous beki, should or ought to do something. Here we have BEKI DEWANAI, or as more commonly seen in casual spoken language, BEKI JANAI, to express that you should not or ought not to do a certain action. as dewanai can be conjugated into janai when you talk in more casual colloquial speech. And just like BEKIDA, BEKI DEWANAI is used after the dictionary form of verbs, and sometimes suru can be just su, like suru beki dewanai can also be used as just su beki dewanai. So BEKI DEWANAI is used just like BEKIDA to express warning or advice, however this time it's that you should not or ought not to do that action.
追ってはない。だが、今後ベベルに近づくべきではないな。
生命に知性など与えるべきではなかった。神が友を求めるべきではなかったのだ。違う！見せるべきじゃない。
ガッツはここに残るべきじゃないかって。
なくて、でもそれからもう逃げるべきじゃないって気づいたの。
知ってるか。世の中の出来事は2つに大別できる。知るべきことと知るべきではないこと。
So, like we can see here in Final Fantasy X, beberu ni chikatsuku beki dewanai. We shouldn't approach near Bevel. And like seen here in Xenoblade, intelligence should never have been given to life. So, ataeru beki dewa nakata. It should not have been given. And as he follows on and says, God should not have sought a friend. Motomeru beki dewa nakata. So here, motomeru to seek, beki dewa nakata, he shouldn't have done. Or like seen here in Famicom Tante, miseru beki janai ne. So here we have the colloquial form, the more casual form of beki dewanai. Here is just beki janai. I shouldn't show her. Again seen here in Berserk, I was thinking, shouldn't Guts stay here? So nokoru beki janai, shouldn't you stay? We also have this example from The Witcher 3. More, nigeru beki janai. I shouldn't run anymore. And finally, we have this example from Octopath Traveler using both BEKIDA and BEKI DEWANAI together in one sentence. Shiru beki koto, things that you ought to know, and shiru beki dewanai koto, things that you ought not know. So very simply, BEKI DEWANAI is used to express that you ought not do a certain action.
海というのは広いんですね。
初めてか。
いえ、でも以前は戦いばかりで、このような美しい海を眺める余裕はありませんでした。
BAKARI DE. BAKARI DE is used to express only or just, mostly used in a negative assessment of the situation. Like for example, このゲームは長いばかりで面白くなかった。The game is just or only long. 長いばかりで it's not interesting. 面白くなかった。So the negative assessment is that this thing is not interesting. It's just long. 長いばかりで only or just. So this is actually a combination of the N4 bakari for only or merely and de, which here is kind of the same as how the te form is, which is also seen as de. And this can act as a comma in between two clauses in a single sentence, connecting two different parts of a sentence, like a comma. You could imagine this as kind of like having the same meaning as bakari, which is used at the end of a sentence, but here bakari de is used in the middle of a sentence, just like the te form is.
所詮は論ぞよ。頭が固いばかりで役に立たん。
ズーグルばかりで鋭どころか手下も見当たらない。
今回も強敵ばかりで厳しい戦いになりそうですね。
せっかく宇宙から戻ってきたのに、お仕事ばっかりで全然お家に帰ってきてくれないんだもん。
静かだな。
ああ、死骸ばかりで誰もいねえ。
So, like here again in Final Fantasy X, 頭が固いばかりで役に立たん. They're just too hard-headed to be useful. So here, they're only stubborn. They're only hard-headed. And so the negative assessment is the following part. 役に立たん, which is 役に立たない, to not be useful. So he's talking about this race of people, saying that they're only that way, and it has this negative connotation. Again here in Tales of Arise, Zuguru bakari de, nothing but Zugles. Or like here in Dragon Ball Fighters, Kyoteki bakari de. So for there to only be strong opponents, Kibishi tatakai ni nariso, it looks to become a tough fight. That's kind of the negative assessment. And like seen here in Star Ocean 2, Oshigoto bakari de, always nothing but work. So only or just work. And then the following clause, which is a little bit more negative, you don't come back home at all. So your life is just work and never spending any time at home. So we can see in all of these situations, bakari de is used in the middle of a sentence, showing that something is only or just a certain way, and then it often follows some sort of negative assessment of the situation afterwards. Now, bakari de can be used after a verb in the dictionary form, it can follow e and na adjectives, and it can also follow nouns to express that something is only that first part of the sentence.
ちっぽけなネズミの分際で小賢しくも私の城に入り込みそればかりでなくその薄汚い手で娘たちに手をかけ
BAKARI DENAKU. So here we have the negative form of the previous bakari de for just or only being a certain way. Well, now we have bakari denaku, or seen in the casual form as bakari janaku, to express being not just or not only a certain way. This is used exactly the same as bakari de, however it's just the negative form. So this is often used as a way of emphasizing the surprise at the way something is. Not just the first thing, but often also the following. And because of this, the following part of the sentence will often have the particle mo in it, as that means also in Japanese. Not only the first part of the sentence, but also the following. However, it doesn't always have to have a more particle following it.
Huh?
使うばかりでなく、時には返してやらないとな。
決して悪いことばかりではなく、今回の騒動の中でセキュリティホールを埋めることもできました。
支えてもらってばかりではなく、自分で前を向いて歩いていかないといけませんから。
So, like here in Biohazard Village, そればかりでなく, not only that, but with your filthy hands you touched my daughters. So it shows a kind of negative implication of the first thing, however the following thing is even worse. Or like here in Final Fantasy VII Remake, 使うばかりでなく, not only use it, but sometimes you have to give it back. Again, we can see it used here with, it's not all bad by any means. So, 悪いことばかりではなく. So, not only bad things, 悪いこと. And finally, we can see it used here in Persona 5 Strikers, that not only with the support of others, I need to walk forward myself. 支えてもらってばかりでなく. So here, 支えてもらう is to receive support, and then ばかりではなく to not only receive the support. Now, as we see, bakari denaku can also be used as bakari dewanaku, and this is just the more formal way of speaking. And this explains why denaku can be conjugated into janaku, because that's how dewanai can be conjugated. Now, one interesting difference that we've seen used in these examples is bakari de implies some sort of negative thing following it. It's only the first thing, and the following thing is something bad. However, here, bakari denaku doesn't have that same requirement for the following thing to be negative. Like for example, in this clip from Persona 5 Strikers, we could see that actually the characters wanting to not continue to do the bad thing, rely on everyone, but instead do a surprising thing, which is to walk by themselves. So the following thing in bakari denaku isn't necessarily a bad thing like it is for bakari de, but it's more of a surprising thing, like a surprising result. And that's it for the next 4 pieces of JLPT N3 grammar. I hope this video has helped you guys get a stronger feeling for how these pieces of grammar are used. If you like this kind of video, make sure to like, subscribe, and if you really love this kind of video and everything that we're doing on the channel, then consider joining us on Patreon and come say hi in the Game Gengo Discord community. In case you guys weren't aware, I am actually going to be releasing the entire JLPT N3 bit by bit with these videos until I'm finally finished all of the episodes. I already have it all mapped out, I've found all the examples, and we will have 49 episodes episodes total in this series. And then once we finish that, then we'll be compiling this into an enormous, possibly 8-hour video. So I hope you guys all look forward to that. Thanks so much, guys, for watching. And as always, I'll see you in the next video. See ya.